Hey, I'm Mike Myers, and this is the Songwriting for Guitar podcast, which is geared to support songwriters and producers to gain confidence and turn pro. I bring on industry experts to help you improve and monetize your skills, engage better in the writing process, and build healthy habits to create a sustainable career that you love. Caffeinated, inspirational, conversational. Hey friends, Mike Myers here with the Songwriting for Guitar podcast, episode 115. Musiversal is changing the game. As a producer, as a songwriter, I'm always looking for things that give me an advantage, especially right now because I talk about this with clients that right now there's a layer of pretty good out there. The majority of stuff that's being released is pretty good. How do we break through the noise of pretty good? Sure, it comes to good songwriting and it comes to great productions. And for me this year, I was thinking, what can I do to break through the noise? And for some reason, it was coming back to organic things, real strings, horns, drums, things that aren't a virtual instrument, but something that I can pair with my virtual instruments. And that's where I discovered Musiversal. It's essentially a membership in which you pay a monthly fee, and then you get unlimited session musicians. Now, when I heard this, I was like, this is too good to be true. I bet I'm going to join. I'm not going to like it. I'll try it for a month. I tried it at the beginning of the year, and here we are. I'm recording this in August, and I've been a member since because I've used it pretty much on so many songs. And it really has given it a layer of authenticity, brought out true, real emotion within the songs. And I've had artists that I've worked with go like, oh my God, this is so good. So in this episode, I brought on Christian and David, who work for Musiversal, to hear a little bit more of the backstory of how it was created and what they have in the works to help producers level up. So if you are a budding producer, you're a songwriter that maybe even dabbles in creating some demos, you're going to want to listen to this because this will change your perspective on creation. So we're going to dive into it. Episode 115, Christian and David from Musiversal. Christian, David, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having us.
Of course, man. Thank you so much.
So I discovered Musiversal through a ad. It was targeted specifically, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, okay, so wait a minute. Session musicians that I can hire, I can pay a monthly fee, and I get all of these. Where have you been all my... It felt like it was one of those, like, where have you been? And why didn't anyone think of this, 5 years? Like, why did it take now? It's so amazing. And I'd love to know just a little bit of the history behind the creation.
Yeah, Christian, do you want to go with that one?
Yeah, for sure. So Musiversal basically started in 2018 when our CEO and founder, Andre Miranda, a Portuguese guy, he was studying to get a PhD in film composition at NYU. He's a classically trained violinist, so, musician at heart. He originally started Musiversal with the purpose of just doing remote recording sessions for orchestras specifically. And then, so that's still something that we do today. But we've kind of branched out into everything else that you've seen that we'll touch upon a little bit later. But around 2020, COVID happens, and that's when that's when Andre really saw that, okay, there's a need not just for orchestral remote recording, but individual session musicians as well. Mm-hmm. So we kind of dipped our toes in at that time. And around 2021, we launched the first iteration of Musiversal Unlimited. It was going quite well, but there was some issues with the business model that we needed to kind of tinker with. We launched Musiversal Studio, which was a separate platform, which was more of a pay per session kind of deal. So we did that for around 2 years. And then roughly 2 years ago, I think now, David, we launched Musiversal Unlimited, the second version, which is what we have now. So it's been, quite a few years of doing remote recording. And I guess you could say COVID kind of created the business that you see today.
Which, if there's a bright spot from COVID, which was just like the weirdest time. And I think everybody, it's like when we say that, we're like, what? I think that is, it has created such forward thinking businesses and products that are so useful because there was no alternative. There was no choice. We had to figure out a way. But now it's allowed musicians, producers like myself, to have access now to people globally in a way that's easy to reach, that you can just jump on. And it's been so much fun. And to me, I would love for you both to speak to this. For me, and I know producers that listen to this and then producers that I mentor, one of the biggest things that they spend so much time and money on is trying to find a plugin that fits a particular sound, that isn't shoddy or cheap, still has that realism and that feel. And even then, sometimes it misses the mark. And there's something to be said about having a session musician that you can communicate with that brings a whole other level of life to your product.
I think going back to like the remote side of things, where COVID kind of, catalyzed this whole virtual first world, is like, what it did is it made everybody very, very comfortable and very, it normalized the process of like this remote collaboration, this virtual collaborative environment. Right. And so that was a big catalyst for us, like where we kind of saw like, okay, session musicians, they can't work in the same capacity that they were doing before because studios are closed down. And so what's the alternative for them? And everybody got really crafty, right? They started using like audio movers, like the Listen To plugin. People were trying to use Zoom audio, and then Zoom, ultimately ends up years later coming out with like a higher end of audio for their product. And so you kind of had this realization that like collaborative tools in the music space needed to exist, and they started happening more frequently as people got comfortable with it after COVID. And so when it goes to, first of all, like to speak to that, you have this idea of everybody's now comfortable with the remote process, the virtual collaborative process. But what happened also was, as a result of COVID, is you had this like increased isolation, which happened. And I think music was kind of following this trend even before COVID, where like the process of creating music became increasingly isolating, where you have, I can go online on Splice and I can get samples, or I can go on Reddit and download a drum kit. Like kind of this whole thing that used to require you to network and to have, outreach to people to get, drum sounds or samples or whatever. Now, all of a sudden it's available for you at a few clicks. But what this did was it created this like isolated creative environment where I'm doing everything myself, right? And so if I'm doing everything myself, I need to go find the best samples because I want the best quality music that I can create, right? So I want to go find a really good violin sound. I want to go find an awesome rock drum kit. I want to find, real groovy bass line, whatever it might be. And all of this was relying on me as a producer. This is all relying on the creator. And where I think Musiversal now is really kind of trying to kind of push back against that notion is that music used to be this like hyper collaborative thing. You'd have people getting together in garages and practicing. You had, a guy like Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys that when he used to go into a studio to record a song, he would have an army of session musicians in there with him. And he would decide like, oh, I'm going to use this one. I'm not going to use this one. And he would have this insane amount of collaborative ability that was, at his disposal for him to produce and compose the songs he needed. And so what we kind of feel, and the whole notion of Musiversal is really trying to get back to, is now that you have this global network, now that you have the ability to collaborate from anywhere, that collaboration is not something that you should shy away from, but instead recognize that like a lot of magic happens when you have that opportunity. And so to take it outside of my creative ability and bring in people that might hear something differently, it goes beyond just getting a real violinist or a real cellist to play because now I'm not using a sample anymore. It actually goes into the notion of, okay, I have the improvisation and the creative ability of a cellist who's been playing for 25 plus years, that's played alongside the Killers, Elton John, Aretha Franklin, you name it. Like the notion of that is it's not only am I getting the most real sounding cello imaginable because it is a real cello, but I'm also getting the, improvisational skills. I'm also getting the creative mindset from someone who's been playing cello for, 25 years instead of me who's never played a cello in my life and thinks I can do it on a mini keyboard, right? And so to have that combination of not only the most realistic sounding, instrument imaginable, but also having the expertise and the guidance there of somebody who is like an absolute master of their craft. I can't succinctly explain how impactful that is on, someone who's composing for sync or producing for, radio ready hits, or, even if they're just making music for themselves and getting the best quality out of it that they want to get. I think you have this kind of twin benefit, which is you get the most realistic sounding sounds because they are real. And then you also get the improvisational and creative ability of somebody who's an absolute master of their craft versus me who's never played a cello in my life trying to do it on a MIDI keyboard, right?
When you put it like that, especially with just like me trying to do it on a MIDI keyboard, for some people, that's how it feels, because you're getting a cellist that has a wide experience, or regardless of the instrument you choose, you're getting not only just their capability in playing, but the experience and the years and everything they've done that has informed how they play. That's the problem sometimes with the plugin that you don't get. And that doesn't translate. So if, I'm a guitarist and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to communicate this on strings, it's really hard, I can allow them to do their craft well and guide them to the best of my ability, but trust that their experience is the thing that's going to help bring this track to life more and more, which I think is huge. And in a C, I feel too right now, because I always tell clients and students, if you look at how many songs are released daily on Spotify, it's, between 60 and 100K, which is immense. And they're all pretty good. And it's like a sea of pretty good, because as you said, it's easy to get samples. We can click here, go there. And so the level of pretty good is here. What's going to cause a song to go past the sea of pretty good? It's not sometimes a numbers game, but the quality and the time that you put into the production. Will real string arrangements and real strings and a thought drum part, along with, harmonies that you've done through a session vocalist, be the thing that help elevates a track and take it from that pretty good to like, oh, that was kick ass. Like that was amazing. That's what I want. And I think that's the thing that it does.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's so many bedroom producers. I know that's the term, right?
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is, make the bedroom producer's bedroom bigger, give it more space and give it more opportunities. You know what I mean? Because previously, if you wanted to go work with musicians, you had to get out of your bedroom. I understand that there's also the logistical cost of that. Not just it's expensive to rent a studio out, but what if you have a 9 to 5 and you do music on the side, or you just don't have time to go out to a studio, or you can't coordinate with that session musician? So you're basically getting the best of both worlds. You're able to get out of the bedroom in a metaphorical sense and connect with other people, but at the same time still stay in your bedroom. So you make the most out of the space that you have. You know what I mean?
That's a huge thing, is scheduling, because that's another thing, because logistically it costs to rent a studio. Then you have to get the session. Then you have to prep everything. You have to make sure, are you going to be the engineer? Are you going to get an engineer? Well, we got to get that as well. So it's like already it's stacking up. And the idea of having something that is cool, I can book a session on my time, because you're global. It's funny when I go sometimes to book a session at Justin, it's like I can book one at 10 a.m. or 3 a.m. Let's see which one I'm gonna. But it's huge, because your audience too is global. Like even as we're talking, you are in completely different, area. Christian, you're in Europe, and then David, you're in the U.S. So it's like the company itself too is global.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, we there's one thing that we haven't touched upon, and we don't really talk about it much, I've noticed, is the community aspect of working with the musicians from all around the world, right? You get such interesting perspectives on music, because a musician who's trained classically in Malaysia didn't have the same education as someone who was trained classically in the United States or Brazil or Costa Rica or anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's one thing that we always placed a lot of emphasis on. We wanted to reflect also how the corporate side of Musiversal looks, how we're all kind of scattered all over the place. We want to make sure that the musicians kind of follow that pattern in the same way, because yeah, there's just so much untapped talent all around the world, not just in the United States. There's great musicians everywhere.
Yeah. And I think to add on to that, people are like, oh, I wish, there were more US musicians. And the reality is we actually have a lot of them. But the thing that actually makes the platform so efficient and easy to use for our members is that if we only hired US musicians, right? First of all, you have clearly like diversity in genre and what they were focused on playing and what their preferences are, but you get more of a global perspective if you're trying to make a different type of music or anything like that. If you have a more global perspective on that type of thing. And the other thing is that imagine trying like the logistics on our side of like managing time zones. Like if we only hired US musicians, there would only be like certain windows of time that our members could be able to book, because we're not going to have them working at 2 a.m. So like to have a global, force of musicians, like I would like to describe it, like to have this global force of musicians, it allows like quite literally like an around the clock session recording experience. So it's like whenever I need a session, I know that there's probably a bass player out there. Like if I want to do my work at 2 a.m., there's probably one there for me. If I need it at 6 a.m., it's there. If I need it at 3 p.m., it's there. And so we wouldn't be able to do that if there wasn't a global staff of musicians. Like if it was only US or only European or only South American, like you wouldn't be able to accomplish that. And so by having this like truly globalized roster, you kind of provide this like 24/7 recording experience, which is just, it's like an unbelievable thing for somebody who has a busy schedule and needs to find a slot somewhere,
Which is the majority of people that listen to this podcast, they're still working their job. And so they're trying to find that time. And I remember that. I remember working my teaching job and coming home at like 9:00 in the evening, shoveling dinner in my face. And then from like 10 until like 2, that was the only time that I could give the craft. And I was willing to do that. And to think of, had I had something like this, it would have been a huge game changer in those beginning songs, because they would have been more realistic. And I think we touched a little bit on this, but the collaborative back and forth, there have been so many times that I love that it's allowed me to think through the part before I deliver it. So it's really made me think about, am I communicating it to the best of my ability? Am I having the resources there, not only in sheet music? So it's forced me to actually kind of go back a little bit and just be like, okay, I remember, is this delivered in a way that is a good quality for a studio musician? But also too, they've been able to take what I've given and they go, hey, I have an idea. Do you mind if and of course I'm like, hell yeah. It's like, go do that. And it's been like, oh, that's the thing that my brain did not have. But through this, I was able to get you to a starting point where you were like, oh, I know exactly what you're going for. It's this. Yeah, that's exactly what it takes. And I've, sent it off to like artists that I've been working with, and they're like, this is really good. Like we just finished up something which we had like at least like 6 or 7 different cello parts arranged with violins. And it's just a little section in the song, but it makes a huge fucking difference, where the artist was like, I love that. What is that? And it's like, oh, it's the thing that brings them alive and so excited about what I'm doing. And it helps me to look like a great producer even more, because I'm thinking about not giving I don't want to say shoddy, because, at the start, we deal with what we got, plugins, what we got, but it helps me deliver a higher level that I know that the song can be.
That collaborative piece of it, there's something about being in the room with somebody, and this really does feel like that. And I think that's the craziest part, is like, they can hear me talking like while they're playing, and like I'll be like, whoa, like that sounds awesome. And then it inspires them, it motivates them even further, and like then they're like, okay, they like this, and so the next take they do, they really lean into that thing that they did, and you can easily just say, play that one more staccato, and they'll do it. And it's like, it's the craziest thing in the world. It's like prompting, right? Like you're like, I can just come up with things on the fly because I'm in this session, and right now they're working with me and they're super invested in my song, and getting me an outcome that I'm really happy with. And I'm invested in my song and getting an outcome that I'm happy with. And so when you have those two mutual, like, align, both of you are mutually aligned on like, hey, we're really just trying to do the song the best justice that we can, you just allow this creative expression to happen. And I think as a result of that, and being in this collaborative environment, just like you and I are talking now, it just makes you feel like you're in the room with them, whether I'm sitting on the beach or whether I'm in my home office or whether I'm downstairs in my studio or riding in the car. Well, we encourage people not to be in sessions in the car, but yeah.
Full disclaimer, please do not.
Please do not join if you're driving. If you're like in the back seat, fine, but like don't join if you're driving. But yeah, like you can be anywhere and get that in the room feeling, and that I think when it speaks to the scheduling, but it also just speaks to the notion of like, this is me doing the best thing for my music because I'm now giving this the time and attention that having a professional session musician requires, which is, be attentive and, go through that process with them and really be experimentative with that. So, yeah.
I agree fully with that. It is, again, in that sea of pretty good, what are the things that I'm doing to push past that? And to me, it's that time and it's that attention to detail. But my music vocabulary and my ability to has grown through just watching a session musician play their part, how they're arranging it, how they're doing it in real time. I get to see that, which informs decisions that I make later on when I'm working on other stuff. And I always tell clients, find your tribe of collaborators. And what's been great about this platform is it has helped me find the ones that I communicate really well, that are, the more I work with them again and again, we don't have to be like, oh, hi, I'm Mike. They're like, oh, hey, yeah, they know exactly who I am. And they can also go like, oh, this is really cool. They open up even more with even more ideas. And it feels like it's that tribe of session musicians that I'm building now even more, which to me is huge for the amount of work that I do consistently.
Absolutely. I remember having one session with one of our santur players. It's a Persian string instrument. I'm a guitarist and a pianist. I don't know anything about the santur. But what I did was, I opened up Logic and I programmed some MIDI, some melodies using whatever VST, and I sent that over to the santur player. And when I get in there, he's explaining to me like, okay, listen, I really like the idea, but keep in mind that, this isn't exactly written the way it's supposed to. And I learned from that, right? So now next time I book another santur session, or this applies to any instrument that you can book on our platform, which is like over 100 or something like that right now. I always tell people Musiversal is much more than just a recording platform. It's a learning platform too. You're going to learn so much from our roster.
Can I say I love that also now there's tuning vocals that are added, which is, I don't mind tuning vocals. I don't, but as I explained to someone, it is a process. It is just like, because, if vocals are, absolutely the thing that people are listening to in your song, and you have to make sure that the tuning, that the comping, that that they're tight, they're aligned. There's so much that goes into it. I was like, that's why there are some people that are just vocal producers that just are vocal engineers, because it is like that specialized. And so having the ability to book someone and be like, great, they're going to make sure that those are tightened and aligned properly, and I can do the next thing. If whatever I can sometimes do to lessen the load of my workload, that to me, I gain back time. And the more I am in this, time is so valuable for me. That is the thing that is the most valuable for me.
You might find it interesting, Mike. We were at NAMM in January. And one of the things that people would come up and talk to us, and they would ask about the platform, and they would say, I'm a professional. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've got my network of session musicians. And we're like, all right, cool. Like, no problem. Like, still give it a try. Like, maybe it's more efficient for you. And then I started to realize, like, there's this one thing that everybody does that most people spend a lot of time on and they don't really love doing it. And I was like, tuning, time alignment, vocal comping. And when I started to tell these like professionals about that side of the service, they were like, oh, I'll use that for sure. Like, that's worth it on its own. And then when you start to talk to people who, maybe aren't super pro, but like, for example, Melodyne, I think Melodyne is like $800 or something like that. Like, it's pretty expensive. And so for $200 a month on Musiversal Unlimited, you can do all of the session musician things. You can do all of the, everything that you need to do musically. But then like also you just have an engineer in there that has Melodyne already and is hand tuning your vocals with Melodyne. And it's like, okay, so I get access to this suite of plugins that I don't have to pay for. I get access to somebody that knows how to use them. I get access to all of these, things that make my music sound a little more professional: time alignment, comping, hand tuning, all of this stuff. And that's just like one piece of the service. That's like one thing that I can book. And then I can book all of these other musicians. It's like, it's so funny. I talk about it all the time. I'm like, I think post-production, like the tuning, time alignment, comping, I'm like, I think that would be worth $200 a month on its own if you were like making a good value, good volume of music.
And for producers that are starting out, that's one of the toughest things to learn.
Yeah.
And they feel the crunch sometimes and the pressure, and then they think, oh, I'm not good enough. And the idea that you can still develop that skill and not feel rushed, knowing you have a service right now where somebody can take care of that, and you can start to practice and slowly build your craft and not feel like you have to rush something out or feel like, well, I can't release it. I guess I can't do anything. I might as well to have that ability to pass it to someone while you're slowly building that skill, I think is a huge weight off of producers and budding producers' plates. They don't feel like they're failures. Like, they can feel like, I've got the time to develop and it's okay. And I have a pro that can take care of this. To me, that's huge in a producer's development when starting out, and even later down the road, just time, because it's like, great, I've got 7 songs. I can't do them all at the same time, but they can take one of them right now. And that's huge.
For sure. And in my case, I just want to put a story out there, see if even you, Mike, you relate, David, you relate, or anyone else listening. When it came to comping, I was always very hyperfixated on not trying to lose the groove of the original recording. And whenever you're comping, it can get, there's a very fine line between making everything, and time alignment as well, making everything seem robotic or keeping the groove. And it's a science. It's really, really hard. So it's not just the fact that it's annoying and it takes a long time to do. It's also the fact that the person who's doing it is phenomenal at it, right? They specialize in that. So they're gonna keep the groove and also save you time.
I can, you're preaching to the choir, because I think, like, still, a lot of my time is always listening, I'm muting things. I'm listening again. I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen just the lead. Okay. Lead with the harm. No, just the harm. And if you're in the entire process from start to finish, like, you helped construct the song, you were there and, creating the production, then you were there at the tracking, and you're so exposed sometimes that you can only hear it one way, that bringing in someone different, it just, I feel like it turns the prism a little bit. And then the prism, it shows a new vantage point that you missed. They do it and you hear it back and you're like, oh, okay, that was better. I think so, it's great. It just shakes up the ear. And I find that's what I need a lot of the time, because I'm so involved with the process, sometimes too committed to the process, that you only see it one way.
You'd be shocked at how many, well, maybe you wouldn't be shocked. Honestly, you'd probably be like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But it's surprising when I listen back and I go watch, customer sessions. So many of them start with like, I've been working on this song for months. This is what I hear on it. But like, honestly, guitar player, just do your thing, because I just need like a fresh perspective. And, they have a chord progression that the song follows. They have drums. There's a bass line. But, they're ultimately basically in there saying, like, I've been working on this too long. It sounds stale to me. There's something I don't like about it. I just want a fresh perspective on it that doesn't veer too far off from what I'm working on, but still kind of, is something different. And of course, you give it to a session guitarist and they just absolutely kill it. And you're like, all right, yeah, like this is
That's exactly what it needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, it doesn't surprise. I'm like, absolutely. Because as you said at the beginning, music over time has become very, very insular for a lot of people. And I think we can look at sometimes, well, so-and-so made music, so-and-so made music. So, yes, and certain people have made music that way. That may not be the way that serves you the best. And I find the more that we build that network, and what you're describing in that scenario too is like, it's a mirror that's showing your song back, but a different perspective. And it's like, oh, you need that again and again. If too, you're planning to make this a long-term thing, which a lot of people that I coach and that listen to this, their goal is to do music 24/7. And it is doable, but it can't be an insular process. It can't. It's not going to, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to grow to the extent that you can if it's all just you. And I think your platform is now allowing people, with all the things that we've been touching on, like the diversity in who you get to choose, the diversity in the types of things, not just session musicians, but when it comes to audio engineering, it's huge. That suddenly makes the playing field a little bit level. So now it's like, cool, you've got these resources so that you can focus on building a quality song and knowing that you have your options here and you don't have to go necessarily to the studio down the street that they're charging more and more because fewer and fewer people are coming through the door. You're the person that's coming through the door and they're like, excellent. All right. So we're going to charge you this. And that's not including the musicians, the communication, the time. It can all be done here. To me, it just seems like this has been the hugest game changer, the biggest game changer, I should say, in my workflow.
I just wanted to touch up on one thing that you said before, that music creation has become so insular, very lonesome, and you kind of just want to do it yourself, right? Because there's this whole these buzzwords: DIY artist, independent musician, indie artist. People think that being an independent artist means you're actually independent, but when in reality it's not. Being an independent artist is you have the power to make the choices of who to have around you, right? It's not like you're signed to a label and you're forced to work with these people. You have to follow certain rules. You have to follow a release calendar. No, being an independent artist is having that autonomy to pick who your team is and pick who you want to work with.
Oh, that's fine. I love that. You have the autonomy to pick who you work with. I think that's a different perspective where people do view it as insular, but how you're describing it is like you're a small business.
Yeah,
you get to build and you get to assemble your team.
Musicians and producers, you're all startups if you want to think of it that way. Like you just have there's finance, there's logistics, there's marketing, there's everything, and you people have to treat it that way. I think, although I understand that musicians we're emotional beings and emotional creatures, and we treat music as like something so personal and near and dear to our hearts, and I still do. Don't get me wrong, and I think you shouldn't lose that because that's the essence of you and the essence of your music. But you also have to have that lens, be able to switch over to the lens of like being a business owner, right? Being a startup.
100%. One of the first courses I ever took in licensing, and this was like 2014, 2015. And I remember hearing some great songs that were produced, but when I would hear stories of, we went to the studio, we hired all these and spent $4,000, I was like, that's not sustainable at all. I was like, that is not going to work. You cannot build a huge catalog of syncable stuff if you're spending that much. And the idea now that you can still get that high quality for a monthly rate is, to me, again, it's huge because, again, if we're talking as a small business, your money has to go to different facets. There are things that you have to do because, you have to create a good song, but that's just the start. It's like that's just it. Then there's the marketing. There's so many other levels that you have to go to. But if you can feel confident knowing I do have a great song and quality musicians have played on it, that I have a very set fee that I know monthly, and it's not like it's going to vary like, I have to check. It's like, no, that's a consistent thing. I think that's huge for someone starting out that's, the budding producer and that mid-level producer that wants to up their game in terms of the quality they're releasing.
Yeah. I think the other, I always view it as like you have some pool of money that you're ready to allocate towards your investing in your music, right? There's some amount, we'll call it X. And, if you reduce the amount that you spend on the production of the song and improve the quality, that allows you more money to spend on the other things that you need to spend it on. And so therefore it's like, okay, I improve the quality of the other things that I'm doing. I improve the quality of my productions. And so it's just a net quality boost, like across the board, like production aside, your marketing, like what can I spend on putting my song out there? What can I spend on outreach? What can I spend on all of the things that kind of I need to make sure that, my song is the best chance of doing what I want it to do. And so like, by reshifting or by reallocating those funds, I should say, shifting those funds away from $4,000 a song on production down to $199. And then I can take that $3,800 if I was comfortable spending that, or I can save myself some money and switch away and, put it back onto something else. Right.
I agree with all of that because it's just when it comes down to it, we are producers, songwriters are a small business. And so you do have to fund a little bit to get a great quality product. But like, if you can then distribute those funds in a way that's sense and consistent. And I think that's the big thing. If you can find those consistent people and your session players, especially as you're developing your sound and you're focusing in on your style and your genre, you're going to find that lane of folks that just really fit in that pocket, that understand what you're trying to do. I think this is huge. So if people are listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm convinced. What do I do now? Where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah, if you liked what you've heard so far about Musiversal and you want to learn a little bit more or possibly even sign up, Mike, we actually gave him a landing page for you guys to use and get a discount for your first 3 months over at Musiversal, and you get to skip the waitlist as well. So I don't know if you have already, we haven't really spoken about it yet, but the way to use the platform is to go in through a waitlist. And the reason why we have a waitlist is because we have a certain amount of musicians on our roster, right? And we can't just open the floodgates and let 100 people sign up or 200 people sign up today, because then the average amount of sessions each member of ours gets to book goes down dramatically, because we still have that same amount of musicians on our roster. So every 2 weeks, we send out invites to the wait list, and we onboard new musicians onto our roster as well. So we can kind of make sure that demand and supply is pretty balanced. But enough of that boring business stuff. With Mike's link, you can basically skip that wait list, get straight in, and get 25% off for your first 3 months of membership.
Shit, 23 months for like, I was like, hold on, I'll go back. But like 3 months, that's huge. I think that's amazing for people, and skip the wait list. Because when I saw that too, that was also the appeal to me, because I enjoyed that it was like, oh, you're not going to add me right away. You're going to wait. And because that totally makes sense to ensure that all your session musicians are not overwhelmed, but you're curating the best possible for your platform, which I love.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It works really well. Like it makes sure that everybody has a very, what I would say, like similar experience to one another. Right. Like, and it doesn't index on like, oh, you joined this day, so there's just more availability. Like, it makes sure that everybody has a very cohesive experience. And I think one of the coolest parts about like when you kind of first join is like, you have the opportunity to kind of book these like meet and greet sessions, like production kickstarts, like these things that kind of, you don't have to just be super ready right away. Like you might be, and that's awesome. If you have that experience, great. But for someone who's just kind of curious and wants to get a feel for how things work, encourage people to book a pre-production or production Kickstarter or a meet and greet session with a musician. Just kind of feel it out and like really try to understand like how this is going to work best for you, because everybody has their own workflow. Everybody has their own process. And so what we've really tried to do is not make Musiversal Unlimited mean, oh, you get unlimited sessions, which you do. It's really more that you have no bounds in the types of problem that you could solve, right? Mm-hmm. That's really what unlimited means, is like whatever challenge you're going through, whatever problem you're facing, there's something on there that can help you address it. And we really encourage people to engage with our marketing content, engage with our emails, like click through the help center, go watch videos on our Instagram and YouTube and things like that, because it gives them such an idea of what they're able to accomplish using the platform. And I think that when people go in there with the, do a meet and greet session, have a pre-production session, they start to really like get this workflow that works for them and really starts to feel how this can be that scalable, sustainable, consistent thing in their music making lives, because we all know how difficult that thing is to find. And for that, consistency to be there and for the availability of that, I think that's like really something I would encourage new joiners to kind of figure out, is like, go in there and figure out your workflow and like make it work for you. Go meet some of the musicians, have conversations, just talk, send them a little thing if you want to just kind of get a feel for their vibe. But like, generally speaking, there really is something in there for everybody, no matter what problem they're facing, whether that's mixing or mastering, or whether that's, I don't know how to write a chord chart, or I don't know how to, create session materials, whatever those things are, we have people in there that can help. So it's just a matter of like really knowing, that there is an answer in there for you, and feel free to reach out to our support team at any time if you have troubles with that. And they'll point you in the right direction and get you started.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions before joining, you can reach out to me. It's just christian@musiversal.com. I'll be more than happy to help with that. But yeah, that being said, that's why we're offering a 3-month discount, is because this is a very new way of creating music, right? We're doing something that no other company has really done so far. So we understand that at first it might be, it might be a bit tricky at the beginning, the way you figure it, how to put it into your workflow, how to make sure that it fits. So that's why you have a little bit more time. You have those 3 months to basically figure it out, right?
What I love about that is that there are people that you can contact, because getting a plugin is tricky, and people are on wait lists for so long, or just like, trying to get support, and, it's an automatic ticket reply. But everyone there, it's a person. You're real, and you're willing to, walk through the platform and explain. To me, it's not only one of the best assets, I think, for producers to have. I think it's also the best support in terms of guiding and helping them navigate. Like, it's super clear. And I think that's what's fantastic. And I don't do a lot of these where I bring people on to be like, hey, let's talk about the platform, because this podcast, really, we just kind of chat with people that are creatives and then are in my sphere. But to me, this has been by far one of the best things out there. And to me, it's like every songwriter and producer needs to be using this right now.
We appreciate that, Mike. And I think that's due to, the way you're describing how our support is. I think that's due to the fact that we're all musicians here on the business, on the corporate side. Like I said, I'm a producer, guitarist, pianist since I'm 5 years old. David's a drummer. The co-founders, classically trained violinist, classically trained pianist. We're all musicians here, right? So we are the users as well. Like, I use the platform sometimes, not too much because I don't want to take away sessions from our members, but occasionally I do use it, and so do many of us here, because we really believe in the platform and what we're bringing to music creators, and we want to make sure that we're making the experience as easy and seamless as possible.
Now, our friends at Musiversal are offering you 3 months of the platform at 50% off, which is insane. And I'll tell you why. I know so many songwriters and producers that spend thousands of dollars on session musicians. Thousands of dollars. And I can tell you right now, that's not sustainable. You're not going to build a catalog of quality music with that. But having something like Musiversal, a platform that gives you access to top-tier musicians for a monthly rate, that is definitely sustainable. And so that you can filter your money into other areas like coaching, upgrading equipment. This is a platform that actually helps you grow long-term. And I can't think of many that do that, except for songwriting for guitar. seriously, this is by far one of the best deals out there. And if you go below our description, you're going to find a link where you can claim your 3 months and start booking your first sessions now. And remember, this doesn't just mean session musicians. You've got engineers to help you with vocal tuning and alignment. That's one of my favorites because I work with tons of artists and sometimes my workload gets really full, and knowing that there's that access right there is fantastic. So click that link below in our description so you can claim your 3 months. And that does it for this week's episode, my friends. I'm Mike Myers. Thanks for listening.